Life is not about doing it quote unquote right. Instead, it's about doing it the best you can with the cards you've been dealt. So, keeping everything simple, let's talk about why Gen Z, we have to start living life on our own terms. Let's dive right in. Welcome back to the Keeping Everything Simple podcast. I'm your host and fellow student, Michael Klukas, and on this show, we boil down complicated topics into simple and actionable tips. Now, one of the first things I have to mention here is that your starting line will be different from everyone else's, and that's just the way that life is. And I emphasize it in that manner because so many things you'll see online, so many things you'll see across social media from your favorite influencers or just from the highlight reels of everyone's life is that, hey, no matter what happens, they can say that their starting line should be the starting line for everyone else too. While forgetting that everyone's experience everywhere that we start is going to be significantly different based off of just our circumstances and how we want to go throughout life and where we want to actually go in the end. For myself, this has been something that I've struggled a lot with because I have wanted so distinctly to have a certain lifestyle, a certain type of outcome, and I've worked towards it. I've worked towards trying to, get a higher education, trying to become more self-sufficient, finding a job and a career path that I believe will, one, make me enough money to support my family in the future, but then also that will provide me with an opportunity and flexibility to do things that I want to do, to lead a deep life and lead a life and craft a life that I find to be fun and meaningful. But my starting line is different. And that's for every single thing that I'm encountering. Every little thing that I want to do will have a different starting line. And the same is going to happen for you, where it can be, maybe you want to, and this can be used hobbies as an example, maybe you really want to get into photography and you're starting in your mid-20s, when someone could have started when they were in their late teens, early teens, that they picked up the camera for the first time and have been doing it ever since. They could have a decade plus of experience. And that happens in so many different circumstances. There's someone that I know at church right now who is an accountant and you can tell loves numbers, loves the math, loves the job, and they're almost 30. I'm getting into this field now and trying to get into the field, and I'm 25. But they have also been doing it for much, much longer. So I can't compare my starting line to someone else's. And for you guys, it's the same. You can't compare where you're starting to someone else's story, someone else's race, because then at that point, you're not doing yourself any favors. You're only setting yourselves up for the comparison trap where you feel like you should be there, you should be higher, you should be much further along than where you actually are. And that just leads to discouragement, it leads to disappointment, and it prevents you from actually taking the right steps because you will always think of what if, why can't I be like them? When you should think about what should I do for me? And how can I make this the best route possible? And real quick, thank you guys so much for watching. And if you are finding any value on this, if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Ring that notification bell so you know every time that we upload a new episode. It really does help us out so much, and I greatly appreciate it. If you're listening to us on Spotify or a podcast app, then make sure you leave us a 5-star rating and give us a follow. That way you know, again, every time I upload a new episode. And it just stokes my ego just a little bit more. But with that, let's jump right back into the podcast. And in talking about the best route possible, the other thing is there's so much negativity, bias that we suffer from as just people in general. And there's so many stories because the negative news is what gets the clicks. The negative news is what gets highlighted, and it is exhausting to say the least. But we can't lose hope for creating a better tomorrow today. Because there's a saying in which if there's anything you want to do, anything you want to get good at, anything you want to learn more about, anything you want to be known for, the best time to start was 10 years ago. But the second best time to start is today. Because when we are thinking about the lives that we want to lead, the future that we want to have, we often can get wrapped up in this idea that, okay, well, I will worry about it tomorrow. I will focus on it when it gets closer, when it's more relevant. And this is a trap that I've fallen into a whole lot, where I'm so used to looking at the forest rather than the trees, which is just meaning that I am looking at the large picture. I'm looking at everything that could be, all the possibilities, all the things that I want to do, all the things that I believe I can do. And then I forget to actually think of the details. I forget to actually think of what am I doing today, in the present, in this current moment, to set myself up for success in that regard, in whatever path I'm choosing. And that's why this year I was changing up my goal setting. I was changing up how I was doing it so that way I can say, hey, I want the first quarter of this year to be focused on these 4 goals actually. And I'm trying to lead a life that allows me to actually say I'm doing something today that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I will look back and say, hey, thank past me for starting. And you guys, I believe, should be doing the same thing, because we can't lose, again, hope and optimism that we can actually make something better, that we can actually do something that will lead us, and not only lead us, but help the people around us craft better lives, help them find some more meaning to them, help them find some more joy in the everyday. Because with so much comparison that we fall into on social media, where you see everyone's highlight reel, you'll see the trips that they went on, you'll see the raises and promotions, the sweet jobs that everyone else has, but then also you don't see the struggle behind it. You don't see the endless nights, you don't see the long hours, you don't see the personal struggles. The highlight reel that we all see is not indicative of the true lives that everyone leads. And that's why for yourself, even if you're in a low point, even if you feel like nothing's getting better, you can't lose hope that tomorrow will be better. And you can't lose the hope that if you start today, you can make the most of it as well. You also shouldn't be afraid to go deep. Now, I say going deep in the same way, and we would go deep in like a hobby, because all of us have some niche interest or hobby that we really can get into, that we really want to say, oh, wow, this is something that I love. I can go on and on and on about. And that's fantastic, because that just means that we have something that we're passionate for, something that we want to throw ourselves into. You shouldn't be afraid of that. Of course, in the past, when we were younger, like high school, middle school, going super, super deep and becoming known for that thing could sometimes be bad. Like, I'll use D&D as an example, because that obviously used to be seen as a big thing for nerds and who's gonna play that. But as we have, and anime is another example of that, as we have grown up and people have come to accept more and more interest in niche hobbies, they're like, oh, no, actually, that's kind of freaking sick. That's kind of freaking awesome. Real quick, if you are enjoying this episode, then you might also enjoy our weekly newsletter, the Keeping Everything Simple newsletter. Yes, there is a very obvious naming scheme going on here, but that's besides the point. If you want to get an inside look into how some of the lessons and stories I talk about play out in my life, then the weekly newsletter would be a great way to dive deeper into that, as well as getting resources and recommendations for books, articles, other YouTube videos that will give you greater insight into some of these complicated topics and how we're going to be able to boil them down more and more together. Subscribe down below in the link in description to the Keeping Everything Simple newsletter, and I will see you in your inbox. All right, let's get back to the podcast. But this is why you shouldn't be afraid to go deep into the things that you're interested in, things that you find to be intriguing and that you want to be passionate about. Because the more passionate you are about something, the more readily and more easily you will find people who share in those same interests and values. Because when we are going just a mile wide, then we have our hands in a little bit of everything, and it can be interesting, but it's usually also a distraction, because in the same way that we are switching from one app to another on a daily basis, if we are just switching from one hobby to the next, then we're never truly going to get good at any of it. We'll be okay and decent at a lot of it, but to be good and to be great and to really have fun with them in a way that can only be done when you really get into the details can only happen when we choose to go deep. And this doesn't mean you shouldn't explore and have like a huge swath of interest, but it still means you should have a couple of select things that you really like to get into the weeds about, have really long conversations about, or whenever you hear someone talk about it, your ears instantly perk up and you say, oh, hey, I know a little bit about that. I'd like to join in that conversation. And it's because, again, there's no right way to live life. There's no way in which it's going to be perfect or it's going to be easy. It's not meant to be easy, but I believe it is meant to be an adventure. And that means with all the highs and lows that come with it. Because, again, your starting line is going to be different, and that's just a given. You can't lose hope for a better tomorrow, but that starts with doing something differently today. You can't just do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. That's the definition of insanity. And you can't be afraid to go deep. And that means deep into your interests, deep into your passions, go deep into your relationships, and building something worthwhile. Just us reminding ourselves that, hey, not everything's going to go right, but the more that we embrace the unknown, the more that we embrace things going wrong, but also hoping and striving for something better, then the more we can truly enjoy the process and enjoy the journey. So, dear Gen Z, there's no right way to do it. There's only right for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you ring that notification bell so that way you know every time I upload a new episode, and leave your favorite word of the week down in the comments below. Just that way, boost us up in the algorithm. If you listen to us on Spotify or another podcast app of choice, make sure that you give us a follow and leave us a 5-star rating. So that way, again, the show gets shared with other people just like you. And hopefully we can help other people craft a life that's meaningful through keeping everything simple. But with that, have an amazing day. You amazing people. And I will see you all in the next episode. Go out there and do great things.